What's going on, guys? Dottz here, and today I'm bringing you a beginner guide on a relatively new system to Black Desert Online, which is the guaranteed boss armor and weapon system. This system was one of the things that personally brought me back to BDO, as I find it to be an amazing way to transition out of the season servers and into the endgame gearing progression, and it just gives a good sense of progress as you upgrade your gear. The way that BDO used to be in the past is that you had to either RNG enhance all your gear all the time, or save up a ludicrous amount of silver for a singular upgrade, and the upgrades felt so few and far between that it just didn't really feel good to like try to make progress as you started to reach the later stages of the game. But now the progression path feels a lot more consistent, and it's mostly quicker than just raw purchasing pieces outright, giving a sense of more medium-term goals and a better sense of progression as you start to move into actually getting pen pieces of gear. But before we do move into the system itself, I do just want to give you guys a top-down look of how the system works, just a big TLDR. And then I'm going to explain it in specifics. Basically, you get pieces of Tet boss armor and weapons from Jatina, who can be found in any major town by the stables. She's where Fugar is. Then, using certain materials that you're going to gather, you craft reform stones, and then you upgrade these Tet boss pieces to pen boss pieces over time by using said resplendent reform stones and putting them into the gear. Every time you upgrade the stone into the gear, you're going to gain stats so that your gear will progressively get better as it goes from Tet towards pen. Once you hit reform stone level 5, which is the max reform stone level, you're going to exchange the gear at Jatina for a pen version of the boss piece that you've been using. Do note that this gear cannot be sold, enhanced, or coffers throughout the upgrade process. However, once it is at a pen level, it can be turned into Fallen God piece or Labresca, or coffers just like normal pen boss gear, but it is still unable to be sold. Now, while all of this is great and all, what pieces does this apply to, and how do you actually go through it? The guaranteed pen armor and weapon pieces apply to boss armor and weapons, totaling in seven pieces in total. It's going to be your head, your gloves, your shoes, your armor, your main weapon, your sub weapon, and your awakening weapon. You can get started with the system right after the season server with your pen Tuvala gear, and if you want to see how to upgrade that, I have a card in the top right of the screen. Now you're going to get that by talking to Jatina and exchanging your gear, the pen Tuvala piece that you have, for her Tet resplendent boss armor. You can also, if you've played in the past and are coming back, you can exchange your regular Tet boss armor as well for this upgradable boss gear. Now when you exchange your Tuvala pieces, you can choose which pieces of boss armor you want. Now, while certain people may want to consider an evasion focus setup, the overwhelming majority of people watching this video are going to benefit more highly from going into a DR focus setup. So the pieces that I would recommend getting for yourself are the Griffin's helmet, Red Nose armor, Beg's gloves, Uragon shoes, Kazarka main hand, Dandelion awakening weapon, and the Kudum sub weapon. So now that we have our gear, what is the next step? Now we can actually start crafting the reform stones. Over time, we can create 5 reform stones, and as I said earlier, our piece gets more and more stats as we place these reform stones into the gear. Do note that you need to place the item, like the reform stones, in the gear in order. So you will need to create all of the reform stones. You can't like only say craft a rank 4 reform stone and skip the first 3. The first reform stones require, you have to actually place them all in that order, and then progressively upgrade it over time. Now, the first 4 reform stones will require 5 materials to make, with the amounts getting higher as you make higher level reform stones. For reform stone level 1, you're going to need to heat 10 concentrated magical black stones, 20 magical shards, 50 memory fragments, 60 boss crystals, and a rough opal. For reform 2, we're going to need 20 magical black stones, 30 magical shards, 100 memory fragments, 60 boss crystals, and a polished opal. For reform 3, we're now up to 30 concentrated magical black stones, 50 magical shards, 150 memory fragments, 60 boss crystals, and a brilliant opal. And then for reform stone 4, we need 40 concentrated magical black stones, 100 magical shards, 250 memory fragments, 60 boss crystals, and a moonlight opal. Now, concentrated magical black stones, memory fragments, and your opals you can just purchase off of the marketplace. The boss crystals are going to be acquired from either killing the bosses themselves or exchanging boss auras to Jatina for a ton of these crystals, which is personally what I recommend doing. And also, if you do have extra dark spirit greed, from doing your rift bosses, you can actually exchange those for the boss weapon auras to turn into crystals if you so choose, which I find to be really, really nice. The magical shards are acquired from heating black magic crystals, so you're going to want to find whichever one is the cheapest for your server, buy a ton, and then heat them down into the magical shards. Now, Reform Stone level 5 is where things get a little bit different. We need 50 concentrated magical blackstones, 450 memory fragments, 120 boss crystals, 30 boss aura, and 1 Aquila crystal. The boss aura for Reform Stone 5 is acquired by performing simple alchemy on a tri-level of the boss gear you're trying to upgrade. So if you're trying to upgrade your Resplendent Griffin's helmet, you're going to need to acquire a tri-Griffin's helm, perform simple alchemy on it, and you'll be able to get your 30 aura. Now, where things get expensive with this is the Aquila crystal. You can acquire this by talking to Jatina and getting one of the main quests that she has for either a weapon crystal or an armor crystal. She will tell you that she needs Aquila crystal shards, and she'll give you a Aquila crystal if you give her those Aquila pieces of the Old Moon. These can be purchased from an Old Moon manager like Stee in Heidel, who's near the training dummies. These will cost a flat amount and are quite expensive, and the amount of Aquila pieces that Jatina will want for the main crystal will get more expensive the more boss pieces you get to pen, so she will want more crystals over time. So the first boss piece will require 3 Aquila pieces to get the crystal, which will cost 1.5 billion. Your second will require 70, which will cost 3.5 billion, and your third will require 120, which costs 6 billion. Now, for your armor, your first piece to like actually get the crystal, you're gonna need 80 of the shards or pieces, which will require 4 billion silver. Your second armor will require 120, which will require 6 billion silver. Your third, which will require 160, which is 8 billion silver. And finally, your fourth will be 220, which costs 11 billion silver. Now, as you can see, the Aquila crystals will get very, very expensive. So that is why the rule of thumb that most people have is to get 2 or 3 pieces of armor through the guaranteed pen system, depending on market prices, and then buying your possibly third or definitely fourth item outright off of the MP, or just going through the enhancement system like you used to. On the weapon side of things, what I personally recommend doing is to get your Zarka and Dandelion to pen through this system, and then get your Kudum to Reform Stone 4, and then stop there. This will essentially give you like nearly a penned Kudum without needing to spend the money on the Aquila Stone, which will save you a ton of silver. You can then upgrade this to pen later on, but it will be one of the last upgrades you ever do in BDO, so wouldn't even worry about it for a long time. Then when you're done upgrading all your gear with the 5th crystal, I would recommend removing any crystals that you actually have in the gear, like in terms of like either like Elcars or corrupted magic crystals, whatever pieces you have. Remove those, and if you want to save them, because when we give this item to Jatina with that Resplendent 5 stone in it, you're going to be getting a new pen item, and and the crystals will not be in it. So with that done, you're going to want to talk to Jatina. You know, crystals removed. She will have a quest called Old Moon's Brilliant X, and you'll hand in your upgraded Tet item to her with the Resplendent 5 stone to her, and you're going to get a pen version of that item. You're also going to get a brand stone as well as 2 crystal removal tools. Now you can start adding coffers to this gear just like any other pen piece. You could also, for the case of your helmet and chest, start working on turning those into Fallen God as well as Labresca. Now do note though that at any time during this, if you decide like I don't really like the piece of boss armor that I chose, you can exchange your weapon or armor for a different piece by talking to Jatina and clicking I exchanged the wrong boss item, and she will direct you to Yasar Pijeto. I'm sure I butchered that. He's an alchemist located in Tarif, and he can give you a different piece. You can exchange, you can change your mind up to once per gear slot, and do keep in mind though that the piece must be a base in order for you to exchange it. But guys, on that note, that is going to be it for me on our guaranteed pen system. This is a really good system in BDO, and I really like the medium-term goals and progression that I feel like it gives BDO, because the game really needed it. And so if you've been thinking about coming back to BDO or just got back to BDO, definitely look into this system, because in my opinion is one of the better things they've added to the game and makes progressing your character a lot more enjoyable. But I did hope you guys found this video helpful and found it informative, and if you did, I would appreciate it if you smacked a like on it. If you have any questions about this system, please feel free to leave a comment below, and subscribe for more Black Desert Online beginner content. So thank you all so much for stopping by today. I do very much appreciate it. As always, I'm Dottz Gaming, and I'll see you all in the next video.